The idea, we've never had a discussion about the idea that we had to trade somehow, that you could trade freedom to participate in society. After 20 months of enormous sacrifice, Chris Whitty said we should now be living with a situation like the flu. And yet, at this very juncture, when we're meant to be getting back to normal, certain leaders think the smart idea to be seen to be doing something is to impose measures where strangers ask you to show some of your most intimate details. It's none of anyone's business. It's actually also got nothing to do with health, because as we know, the Prime Minister said it himself, that vaccines don't stop transmissions. They will help with serious illnesses and deaths. And also we know from various researches and studies that you can have not had a vaccination, you could have had COVID, and you could have very high immunity, 25 to 27 times higher. So actually what we've got is a bit of a performance where it looks like something's being done, but the damage to business on the one hand, which is significant, we've seen 50% of reduction in Scotland since it's happened with the nighttime sector. We've seen in Manhattan where it's there, 60% reduction. But actually to our very fabric of life, to our way of life, the idea of show me your papers to participate and get on with life, it's utterly wrong. It's illiberal and we shouldn't have it.
Joe? I'm not sure there's any evidence to suggest that vaccine passports actually do anything. There was a bit of a jump in Scotland amongst young people getting vaccinated because they needed to show them at nightclubs. But there hasn't been anything other than that. And I think, the sheer logistics of standing in a queue outside a nightclub, which I haven't done for very many years, I have to tell you, while somebody's looking to see whether, and is it real or did you get it off the internet or something? I mean, it doesn't actually help. What we need to do is to persuade people, properly and sensibly, the public health benefits of having a vaccination, because it's not just about you, the individual, it's about the people around you. But I don't think that vaccine passports are the answer. I think travelling abroad and travelling in and out of different countries is a different matter altogether. And, we're all perfectly happy to take, whatever it is, whether it's malaria or yellow fever jabs or whatever is required. But I think in order to go about your daily business and your leisure thing, and as Alan says, I mean, the hospitality sector has been absolutely slaughtered. And, it makes a mockery. Well, it made a mockery of Eat Out to Help Out, which, of course, saw a huge increase in coronavirus. Now we seem to be kicking that same industry in the teeth.
We do. Harriet, should we have these vaccine passports?
Well, I'm all for anything that stops me being locked out again. I'm for anything that means I can go out to a nightclub, I can go to a theatre, I can see my friends. I am absolutely passionate that I don't want to be locked up, and if that means
so would you agree to do anything?
Sorry?
Would you agree to do anything then, just as long as you're not locked up?
Yes, I would. I mean, if it means showing... It takes 2 minutes to show you... I've come in, I've travelled. It takes 2 seconds to show my that I've been jabbed. And, you're saying this is intimate details. I'm sorry, but showing that you've been jabbed is hardly intimate details. I mean, I have a lot more intimate details I could show.
But hang on, but what if you're someone who, let's be clear, there's conversations now. Boris Johnson was alluding to the fact, what does it mean to be fully vaccinated? He was alluding to the fact very recently that would be possibly 3 jabs. Now, I'm going to just pull up a tweet if I've got it somewhere. I hope that I can just pull this up for you, because there are people that have got real concerns. I don't know, people have had their double vaccinations, and there was a tweet that went out, I think it was yesterday or so, where somebody had raised... can I show this tweet on the screen? I hope I can. Yeah. So a guy here, David Atherton, he said, from our well-beating NHS... Oh, I'm trying to show you it, but we've moved up so quickly. It's basically what he's saying is, so sorry, I'm trying to read it to you, and it's going whoop up the screen. So sorry if you missed that, but long story short, he's asking about the NHS. He's saying he's got 2 jabs, and what's happened now is that when he's gone for his booster, it was a different type of jab. Sajid Javid basically responded and said, and I quote there, you saw his tweet, that was not a made-up tweet, so what? Lend some respect, basically, for the NHS.
Well, I sort of agree with that. I mean, lots of people who had the AstraZeneca in the first place...
You agree with what?
With the so what? I mean, it doesn't matter what the booster jab
How do you know?
Well, because they've been testing them.
Well, so let's have a
They
little look at this discussion about both your point. It stops us getting locked down. So in Gibraltar, 100% of people have been vaccinated. They're going to have a lockdown, and transmission rates are still going. You've got vaccine passports where, in many countries where they've been used, and we've got lots of what they call cases. They're actually positive tests, which raise another issue anyway. But the very idea that you have this digital certificate, where actually it is the state and individuals can be asked at any time, can ask of you to show me who you are, show me your health papers. They don't actually do the thing we're being told they do in the first place. Many people think, well, maybe if it keeps us safer, stops us being locked down. If we remember this discussion about hospitals, one of the interesting things about vaccinations as well is that many of the people that contracted coronavirus in hospitals often got it from other patients in there, often sometimes when they were vaccinated, because it doesn't stop transmissions, as the Prime Minister has said. Why don't we do some things that are really useful instead of this charade that's damaging to civil liberties? Have single rooms like they do in Germany, right, to separate people in hospitals. Why have we not spent the last 9 months when everyone knew what was coming up? Because every winter we have a similar issue where the NHS is overwhelmed. Why have we not started preparing hospitals? We quickly formed some new hospitals. They were closed down again. Instead, what we have is a combination of a nudge, which has been admitted, right? Let's have a nudge, so we threaten young people so that they go and get a vaccination because they can't participate. And at the same time, something that's very damaging to civil liberties. But also look at Italy and France. In Italy and France now, you can't travel on the public transport, in cafes, in restaurants and bars and
Can't go
clubs.
to the hairdresser in Austria.
And in Austria, they're now locking down people that are
I've
unvaccinated.
got a clip of Austria, by the way, just whilst we're talking. This is what's going on in Austria. Many of you will know that they have locked down the unvaccinated. Look at this. This is it looks like a closed shop, and you've got the police wandering around, making sure that there's nobody in there that are so-called unvaccinated, checking people's... I personally think this is absolutely outrageous. And, Joe, I do need to come back before I move on. You say that you actually agree with Sajid Javid saying, so what? I think it's appalling. I think there will be people that are genuinely concerned. We were asked to have 1 jab. Then we were asked to have 2 jabs. Now we're asked to have 3 jabs. There are people that sit there and go, well, hang on a second, I've had 2, whatever it might be, just say Pfizer or whatever. Well, I've had 2 of these, now you're giving me 1 of these. How safe is this?
The 2 jabs were, I think, in 99% of cases, were the same. So the first 2 were the same vaccine. There's nothing to suggest that the third one, the booster, is any less effective by being a different one. You know, when you
but
go
let me
for
ask you this, then. This is because honestly, I could talk about this subject all day because I find these things really discriminatory and wrong. If, and just bear with my thinking here, if in order to be regarded as fully vaccinated imminently, you're going to have 3 jabs because they're suggesting that actually you're going to have 3.
And a jab every year after.
Well, they haven't
or maybe
said
even
that.
every...
They haven't said that.
Yeah, but it's looking like...
It may be, but let's stick with what we know at the moment. It's 2 jabs and a booster.
Well,
yeah,
at the moment...
about the booster after 5 to 6 months, because what they're suggesting is that after 5 to 6 months, the immunity. So then, this is where I get confused. So you can only go into places if you are fully vaccinated, i.e. looking likely 3 jabs, because apparently these things only last 6 months. Why then isn't someone that's just had 1 jab 4 months ago, why aren't they classed as vaccinated then? Because if what you're saying, not you, but if what the suggestion and the science is that actually you can only be fully vaccinated after you've had your 3rd one, because apparently this thing is waning, how come 3 months after your first one?
Well, they haven't brought it in yet, except in Scotland and Wales, I think, or Northern Ireland, you said. So, yes, you're absolutely right. It doesn't make any sense because the only people who could have been fully vaccinated are older people at the moment, if you take that booster jab, because kids haven't been able to have the booster jab because of the gap between the 2, you know, the 6 months between the second one and the booster. All I would just say is there's only
need to be very brief, by the way,
there's
I've got
only
another
one
topic.
disease that we've eradicated in the world, and that's smallpox. Everything else we live with through a combination of prevention and protection, whether that's measles or tetanus or rabies, and I think we just need to be a little bit less heated about this. It's a public health issue. It's cost hundreds of thousands of lives, millions worldwide, and we just need to be a little bit sensible about it And actually...
Well, I think we need to be very sensible about it.
Last point on this as well,
if you look
by
at
the way.
Israel, they're now saying that you do need 3 vaccinations for your vaccine passport. We've also been told that in terms of if you don't have a 3rd vaccination booster, you could have to quarantine now when you come back in the country. If we have a digital ID system where this is the way you get to participate in society and this is a requirement to be considered boosted, that's what will happen. And we do need to address it. We also need to address the 5 million people who are waiting on the NHS with cancer, heart disease and sepsis and strokes and a range of other issues as a consequence of lockdown. So I'm simply saying that there's a lot to deal with. We should be open properly. That's why the Together Declaration has got so many people in the public supporting it. I really think that leaders need to think about, before trying to look like they're doing something good, to consider the cost. You know, the question of us being able to move around freely, we've not even discussed it. No one's provided any evidence of the efficacy for it. And quite frankly, it's an outrage.
But we haven't got COVID.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.